Hi everyone, welcome to the Ravit Show. Look who I'm with me, Jeetu Patel, President and CPO at Cisco. Jeetu, first of all, welcome to the Ravit Show. I'm super excited to host you today and long due, but finally we're doing it. So happy about it.
I'm sorry it took so long to schedule, my friend, but it's good to be here.
It's always great, obviously, to hear you on the big stages out there, and finally, you have you on the show. For our audience today, we'll be talking a lot around obviously AI, the announcements that Cisco has been made at not only just at the partner summit. I was at .conf and obviously attending all the interesting conferences, but getting all the announcements. I was telling G2 backstage, I feel like Cisco is operating like a startup, and you all are so back to back. We've been seeing so many things shipping so quickly, so can't keep up, and that's why I had to have G2 here to share about not only just the vision, Cisco's vision for AI, but also what it means for the APAC market, the Asia Pacific, Japan, and China market, and also the India region. So kind of excited to learn about that, but also the journey of leadership and how this all is shaping up. So Jitu, let's start with something on the lines where you can tell us about the industry trends that you're seeing in the AI space right now, and how is Cisco articulating towards the AI vision there.
So, firstly, thank you for having me on the show, and I feel like we are in a very exciting time in tech, and
Right.
Cisco is clearly we're having a lot of fun. We're actually moving at a really fast pace. There's a lot of innovation. We've probably had more innovation in the past 15 months than the previous decade combined, and I think that rate is only going to accelerate as we move forward. But it's hard. I mean, this is hard work. Like, you have to make sure that you keep kind of focusing on the execution details, and
Right.
it's the team's doing a fantastic job. I'm really proud of the team. As I as we take a step back and look at how is the market doing and how are we actually progressing in this market right now, this is one of the most seismic shifts that we've ever seen. And whenever there's a platform shift like this that happens, in the short term, people overestimate the impact. In the long term, they grossly underestimate the impact. And there might be some choppy waters in the short term because people will be like, oh, AI is going to be great. It's going to change everything. And we're not going to have any jobs. And we'll just be all human jobs are going to be taken by AI. That'll be one extreme of the narrative. And on the other extreme, it'll be like, this thing is terrible. It doesn't work. It was all a bubble. It hyped up. And now there's nothing that we should pay attention to. Neither of those
Okay.
tend to be true. Like, the truth is somewhere in the middle. And but if I think about um, the reality of what's happening right now is every workflow, every business process, every job will get in some way, shape, or form rethought and reconfigured. And so when people ask me, like, what is going to happen to jobs, what I tell them is, some jobs will be lost.
Hmm.
Every job will be reconfigured, and brand new industries will emerge that don't even exist today. And so by if you look at the year 2040 or
Hmm.
2050, the top jobs then don't even exist today. And we'll
Wow.
actually have, new jobs that'll come up that we hadn't even thought about. And look at every new generation that comes out, there's a whole new plethora of jobs that didn't even exist 10, 15, 20 years ago, where people make a very good living. And that's going to
True.
be no different in this case.
Yeah, I love it. I love how you've kind of mentioned about people are in that state of mind where they feel that, oh, yes, our jobs will be replaced, or maybe AI will take our jobs. But I feel that as I talk to a lot of enterprise leaders, I also understand that how is AI kind of making their job easier, but also making sure that they are maybe 3x more productive than what they are right now. Maybe they are 4x, 5x more productive with the agent work. With now, obviously, enterprise leaders have started understanding the power of agents as well and the power of AI in their workforce already. So I think it's just such a myth where we kind of wonder about things where oh, it's going to take our job, but it's just going to make you more productive. You're just going to get over all the mundane tasks, and things would, obviously definitely change a lot in 2040 or 2050. So can't wait for that.
I'd
Jeetu.
say probably like three stages of maturity to think about is maturity. Number one is when people start worrying about AI taking the job. That's the least
Mm,
stage that someone's in. Stage number two is when you start thinking about, oh, AI might not take my job, but someone using AI better than me will definitely be a threat to my job.
yes.
Stage number three is where you start realizing that without AI, I won't be able to do my job.
Do
And
my job.
that's actually not that different from imagine hiring someone today that doesn't know how to use the browser,
So true. Right.
right? Like it's like if you don't know how to use the internet, you are not a relevant worker in today's day and age. That
Mm,
is how it's going to be with AI moving forward. So, like resisting this change in the short term tends to be a pretty bad idea. And the big kind of area that we've underestimated the impact of AI is not in productivity enhancement. It's not in kind of making sure that we can get more done with less. It's none of that. It's the reality is there's going to be original insights generated from these jobs or from
right.
these technologies that don't exist in the human corpus of knowledge, which allow us to solve problems that we were never even able to dream of solving before. And that, in my
Yes.
mind, is a very interesting way to think about this because we will use AI to do things that just physically weren't possible by humans, either because of scale proportion or because of complexity of analysis or anything of that sort. So, like, it's one thing when like I was listening to Sergey in one of the podcasts, and he had a really good point he talked about at Google that if I have something that I'm doing and I have to go through, I'm using an agent and I have to go through a
Mm-hmm.
website, right? And if I have 10 websites to go through and then make sure that I do follow ups over there, then it's something I can do. It just takes me longer to do. So the first stage in my mind is things that I don't have time to do that AI can do for me. The second stage is things that I actually think AI can do better than me because it's just going to be faster at doing certain things. So if
Yes.
I have 1,000 websites that I have to go and peruse through, and then make sure that I do follow-on research on each one of those 1,000, his point was it's going to take him a while, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now imagine if I had 100,000 websites I had to go through, and I had to make sure that there was automation of work that needed to happen.
Hmm.
It is at some point the human capacity to aggregate knowledge with very large corpuses of data, we're not good at that, and
Yes.
so
So
that's where
true.
you need machines. But
Yep.
what humans are very good at is making judgment calls based on intuition, based on gut feel, in a way that um, can be done with incomplete availability of data. That's where
Hmm.
humans tend to thrive. People say, I didn't have enough data, but I had a gut that I needed to do this,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
I just went for it. And there, I just don't think that machines take that over anytime soon. Like the human gut is human intuition is a very strong thing.
I think you're so right about, sometimes we kind of, underestimate, technology at various levels as well, where you have a limitation, but if you can go 10x, 100x using that technology, why are you not making the most of it, right? I'm kind of, also shifting gears a little bit here to the APAC region because I know the Melbourne Cisco Live recently happened and the Partner Summit had like such great announcements that you all made. I'm wanting to hear your thoughts, Jeetu, from the APAC market itself. Like APJC is a huge market for Cisco. What feels unique about this market as compared to your North America or Europe? Any patterns that stand out to you? I'm kind of curious to your thoughts because you meet a lot of customers, a lot of leaders, you sit with the government officials, you hear their vision. So I'm wanting to hear a little bit about that from you.
I think that region has a tremendous amount of growth, right? And so there's a lot of GDP growth.
Hmm.
There is a ton of enthusiasm about more and more people entering into the middle class. In fact, if you just look at India over the course of the past, decade, there's been more entry into the middle class than entire populations of entire countries all around the
So
world. And
true.
you've got so you've had a lot of prosperity through the upliftment of people into the middle class, which is a very exciting thing. Um,
Yes.
and then the third thing is, the the entire kind of economic model tends to be very different in those countries,
Yes.
in those regions. So just a lift and shift of the West does not end up working. You have to actually be very clear about building something that's very specific for the region. And when I say building something specific, I don't mean product. I mean that the way in which the operating model works in some of these countries has to be fine-tuned to the region.
Right. Right.
So, I tend to have a fair amount of enthusiasm about that part of the world. One, because I'm from there, so I understand um, the kind of potential intrinsically. But I also feel like the governments have done a great job. They're operating with a level of kind of tenacity and almost like a startup mindset.
So true.
Um, when I meet with government officials in India, they're very keen on asking, like, what can we do better to move faster? And then when
Love it.
we ask them for something, things move at a very fast pace.
Right.
Um, and so that's exciting, and I'm very bullish on that entire region and what the potential is going to be over the next 5 years, 10 years. Now, where I think we have an opportunity is India has to become AI first. Asia has to
Mm.
become AI first, and we have to make sure that that is front and center in the emphasis, in every industry, every region, every segment, every industry. So I'm looking forward to kind of partnering with both the public sector as well as the private sector and making that happen.
Yeah, I love it. And that is so true that you mentioned about, obviously not only just the economic factors are changing in this region. Obviously, I still split my time 6 months in States, 6 months in India, and we kind of, obviously get the best of in the APAC and the Europe market as well. But we kind of, obviously we are trying to learn the market, and the market is growing and evolving. So, if I have to zoom a little bit more into India as well, because it's such a huge region and it's such a huge nation, right? How do you see India shaping up, not only Cisco's AI roadmap, but both as a market and as a talent hub? What do you think about India as a region? What do you feel?
I look. I'm the country sponsor for India, from Cisco, and I have a lot of energy in the progress that's been made. I think you have to give the government of India a lot of credit in this case because they've really executed at a very, very good level. And the thing I find most fascinating is how coordinated they are in their efforts. Like, and I was in Davos um, past couple of years. I've seen a very, very
Yep.
strong presence from India in Davos,
Right.
and Davos is coming up again for
January.
in January or so, and I'll be there again. And what I find is um, the private sector and the public sector are so well aligned on what the objectives are for India, and as a result, what each one of their roles is to go out and further it forward. And they're highly, in some ways, very, kind of coordinated on what needs to happen while being very competitive. So if you go to every state minister, they all are kind of pitching and saying, "Come over here to our state. Make sure that you actually establish presence in our state." But on the other
Right.
end, they're all working for the same team, which is India. And I do have a lot of respect for the way that they're operating right now. And I feel like that you have a very bright future ahead.
I love it.
And Cisco would love to play a role in there because we want to make sure that we can provide the best technologies to companies of all shapes and sizes in India so that they can have um, the benefit of that innovation that can progress their cause forward.
Yeah, I love it. Jeetu, one more thing that I wanted to obviously ask you is Cisco is, sits at the intersection of networking, security, data, and obviously AI. So how and what does that let you do with AI that most of the pure AI companies cannot do right now? Because y'all, and that's why I always feel like what I've been kind of seeing in the last 1.5 year, 2 years, Cisco has been non-stop in so many different parts, and we have so much of learning that we need to catch up on. So, what are your thoughts when it comes to being at that intersection, and how does Cisco play a very important role in the market?
See, the way we think about this is AI is fundamentally constrained on three areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first one is infrastructure. We
Totally.
don't have enough power, compute, or network bandwidth to go out and fulfill the needs of AI. As these agents start working 7 by 24, the demand is only going to go up,
Up.
right? And so while people feel like we might be in a bubble because we're trying to build out all this infrastructure, I feel like we are completely underestimating the demand signal on that front. And
Mm,
yes, there might be a bubble from the sense of there might be some frothy companies with frothy valuations, but that does not take away from the core demand signal of the intrinsic value that infrastructure can provide to this movement is going
mm,
to continue to be very high. So that's where I feel like that's the first constraint is infrastructure. And what we provide over there is, ultra low latency, high performance, high energy efficiency networking that can move packets. Because if you have a GPU or a, a thousand GPUs, that's great. But unless they get networked, you don't have AI. And so
mm,
networking is a core element of this entire equation, whether it be for networking, GPUs within a server, within a rack, across a row of racks, or even across data centers. You need to make
mm,
sure that you've actually got, very, very high performance networking that's low latency, that is, energy efficient in some way because we just don't have enough power. And right now, what's happening is data centers are being built where the power is available rather than pulling the power to where the data centers are.
yeah,
Because of the sheer scarcity of power. So that's the first big constraint is infrastructure. The second big constraint
infrastructure.
is trust. If people don't trust these systems, they're not going to use them. We call it internally, we call it a trust deficit. There's a trust
Mm,
deficit in AI. And what I mean by that is that most people are worried that if they can't trust these systems, their organizations cannot use them. And so what we have to do is we have to secure AI itself and make it, largely easy to use. And more importantly, anyone that's using AI should not have unpredictable behavior from the models because these models inherently are non-deterministic. They're unpredictable, but you're trying to build very predictable applications on unpredictable models. And so you have to make sure that you don't only use AI in cyber defense, but you secure
mm,
AI itself, right? So that's the
right,
second big area of a constraint. And then the third one is a data gap, where right now, most of these models are trained on publicly available data, humanly generated on the internet.
right, right,
And I feel like there, uh, there was a worry that because we were running out of, publicly available data generated on the internet for free, what are we going to do next? And our scaling law is going to continue to keep applying. And the good news is synthetic data is starting to prove to have very good results with these model trainings, especially on the post-training side. And then what you also see is, in addition to synthetic data, machine data is very important. And we have so far not utilized machine data in the development of the model. So that's an area where Cisco is squarely in the middle of again. So it turns out that infrastructure, trust, and data, which happen to be the three big areas that could be impediments, Cisco happens to have at scale franchises that can help with that. And so that's what we're doing. And that's where you're starting to see the momentum in the market towards Cisco. And that's why you saw that we had a great earnings. And these are kind of secular shifts that are going on where we happen to be at the center of that shift.
Okay. These are fantastic insights, and obviously, great pillar explanation that you've kind of given us. Also, before we wrap this up, I want to obviously touch on this, and I've been, obviously seeing your journey. Like I said, I've been obviously following everything that you've done in the not only just in the leadership space, but before that as well. You did not start, your career in the C-suite, right? It's more on the lines where obviously now you are talking to all the government officials across the globe, and you travel a lot and all of those things. But I'm wanting to hear from you, Jeetu. What are one or two early experiences that you still that still helps you shape how you lead today? And also looking back, what were the key inflection points in your journey that prepared you to lead product and strategy at Cisco, and obviously make it non-stop and make it so interesting for people like ourselves who've been, obviously having communities, and they are getting non-stop announcements from our end as well. So kind of curious to hear your thoughts around this.
I think if I were to say you know, what leads to success commercially that we all think about, I think it's very important to keep in mind that the things that lead to success are at a first principles level, someone's ability to constantly keep learning and learning how to
Mm,
learn, you know, and as much as you can, uh, trying to keep your ego in check and making sure that you're you understand that any of these things tend to be larger than any individual person, because business is a team sport. And picking the right problems to solve, getting the right people around you to help solve that problem, and that team having the right chemistry and the common mission that they believe is larger than any one of themselves by themselves is actually a very important thing. So like that would be one thing that I would say is, you know, um, I was lucky enough to have very, very smart people around me during the times. And, I would always seek
love it.
who are the people who are going to teach me the most, and keep them close by, because there's a lot of benefit in being the dumbest guy in the room, and learning and soaking it up. The second thing I'd say is, so the first one is learn to learn. Second is, bring really good, hungry, curious people around you and
Very
do
true.
things that you're very good at, and make sure that you can bring up a team that is well rounded so that your limitations are their strengths,
Friends.
and that
Wow.
there's no ego in thinking about if someone does something better than you, that does not make you inferior. It just gives you more time to do the things that you're best at doing. And no one does everything great. All of us have areas that we don't do well. And so the less you focus on that and the more you focus on the things that you're doing well, that you can become world class at. I think there's a common school of thought that if I look at a performance review in a corporation, someone will give me here's what your strengths are, here's what your limitations are. Now go focus on getting better at your limitations. And I
Mm,
actually feel that's a wrong way to go at it. I feel
mm,
like you have to intrinsically understand your strengths and spend 99% of your time over there. And the things that are your weaknesses, try to find someone else to do those, unless those weaknesses tend to be meaningful impediments in your progress forward. For example, if you say, I'm just not a good communicator, that might be a skill that you want to learn, because being a poor communicator and being very good in business, that happens, but it happens far fewer times than you would imagine. And
mm.
so it's much more important to make sure that you keep that in mind and say, okay, I'm going to be really good at a few things. That's what I'm going to focus on. And the things that I'm not so good at, hopefully someone else who's really good at those things, we can team up. But there's going to be a basic set of things that I'm going to be very good at. Having discipline, making sure that you've got the right level of learning ability, and making sure you
Right.
can communicate and inspire people. Those are things that are pretty important at any, whether you're happen to be in the C-suite or not, it doesn't matter. like an individual, we all on a daily basis, from the time I had the junior most job, I had a job to make sure that other people got excited about what I cared about and got them to come join
Love
the
it.
journey, you know?
Yep. I love it. I love Jeetu how you've kind of explained it and how you've obviously stayed grounded to date, because I see you obviously doing not only just going out and obviously traveling the world, but making sure that you are available and approachable for everyone out there, the community, the customers, the enterprise leaders at every level. So this is great. Your journey is definitely super inspiring. We'll obviously do a 2.0 session around that and obviously get more into those detailings. But Jeetu, thanks for taking the time out today. Thank you for sharing your vision, your journey. We covered a lot around Cisco's role in AI era, obviously also what makes APJC and India so important in this story, and how you think about leadership at this scale. I know many in our audience will have like many takeaways around both practical ideas, personal inspiration from this conversation. We'll keep the conversation going to, again, I'll say this, you all operate very quickly, you all operate uh, as a startup, and you all are non-stop. So we'll keep up with all the announcements. We'll keep a tap on that and make sure that our audience are educating themselves with all the key announcements and how you all are making the life of the enterprises and the leaders easy as well.
And Ravit, what I'll commit to you is one of the things that we're working very hard on is it is very hard to consume all the innovation that's happening. And we are trying to make it easier for people to consume that, because right now, the thing that we haven't cracked the code on is we're moving at a very fast pace, but our customers need to digest that information, and we have to give it to them in kind of in an organized enough manner where the cognitive load for them to digest the information doesn't get to be super high, because then the value of the innovation is actually less, because we were not able to communicate it to the market and get it distributed and seeped into the fabric as fast as we'd like. So that's an area that we're spending a lot of our time on, is not only should we innovate fast, we need to operate at speed, but we need to operate with scale. And we need to get to billions of people around the world at scale with speed.
Yes. I really love that, and how you've obviously how you care about the innovations being at speed but also at scale, and how empathetic you are towards the customers and obviously the users as well. Jeetu, one last question for you is, if folks want to follow you, reach out to you, I think LinkedIn is the best place, because I think you always go out, share a lot of content on LinkedIn. So I think LinkedIn is actually, I've answered it for you, which is where people can follow you on LinkedIn and stay in touch. But once again, thanks for doing this. We'll do a 2.0 separately around many more things that you all have been building. Thanks. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Such a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.